It's very heartwarming. It really is. And I didn't know what to expect going into this. I was a bit worried. I was a bit missing home. And now it's like, oh, this is awesome. So recently I enrolled maybe 4 or 5 Yazidi background girls. So, I think 4 Iraqi Yazidis, 1 Syrian. And they joined the Bella Girl program, which is run here in this building. And it's all about self-esteem, goal setting, making your dreams come true in real practical, let's get this done sort of thing.
You're listening to Who Is My Neighbour, a podcast by You Belong Australia. Each episode, you'll join with Sorgal and Warren to meet some of Australia's newest neighbours. You'll hear their stories, listen to their hopes and dreams, and discover the incredible courage and inspiration they bring to our communities and richly diverse Australian culture. You'll also learn from some more established Aussies too, and the joy they've found living and working alongside our refugee and migrant background neighbours.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Who Is My Neighbour. I'm so glad you could join us. Today we'll be speaking with Andre, who works with young refugees in Toowoomba. Looking forward to hearing this one.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy her story. Andre, thank you so much for joining us today in Who Is My Neighbour podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sorgal.
Thank you. Andre, I know that you've been involved in the refugee community for quite a long time. So I'd really like to hear a little bit about your story, your background, and what made you interested in working with refugees.
Okay, good question. Thank you. It's something that sometimes I'll pause and go, wait, what? How did I end up here? Because I didn't study social work. I wasn't I wasn't interested in this space. It kind of naturally unfolded, I suppose. So I've been in Toowoomba 12 months and working with the local refugee community here for 12 months. Nearly 18 now. But prior to that, I was doing some volunteering at the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre. So that's something that anybody can do. You don't need special qualifications. You don't need, any particular niche specialty skill set because it's a large organisation and you can just pop in and help out wherever they need. So I guess I studied at university. I did international studies, which is a super broad degree. It's basically a glorified arts degree, I would say, with the opportunity to major in international relations and Middle East history and Middle East politics, which is what I did. And in that was, I guess, I found a lot of interest in the Middle East region and often the Western involvement and civil wars and how refugees happen, I suppose, how the conditions in someone's country can cause traumatic events and they need to leave for safety purposes and whatever it is. So after visiting Sri Lanka and the Middle East a couple of times, I came back to Australia and I realised that they're localising the projects over there. They don't really need another white girl to go over and save the world. And so I found that there was actually, a lot of refugees here in Australia. I don't think people realise or know how many that we settle and provide for and support and welcome. That started the volunteering thing and eventually there was a cool job that popped up in Toowoomba. No friends or family here, but I thought, why not? I'm young, I don't have kids, I'm not married. Let's just try a new chapter, I suppose. And there I am. When I moved up, it was start of COVID. So that was really interesting to try and work from home and engage youth refugees from from home online. So I made some very dorky Facebook videos and Facebook Lives. But it was actually the best thing for starting a youth hub because I had a presence already. And so when we did open our doors in April, May-ish last year, the kids kind of already knew me. So they stopped in after school and we started doing our youth work from there. And I suppose it's just gotten bigger and bigger and better ever since. Yeah.
So tell us about that work that you're doing. Is it mainly with youth in the community?
Yes, we have a 12 to 21-year-old focus.
Okay.
Eligibility criteria, but our focus, I would say I work a lot with year 11 and 12 refugee background. So we focus on areas such as employment pathways, study pathways, linking them in with English practice, whether that be at the local Humeridge Church. They do some great English practice. You Belong, all the different English practice things. And the last sort of thing we do, which kind of rounds in everything, is it's called community connections. So it's about building relations and working on the young person having relationships and connecting with mainstream Australia, and basically just helping them join a soccer club or youth group, or it could be chess club. I don't know. It's just anything to get them out there in the community and having a go. Building the confidence and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Andre, many people find it difficult to work or make friendships with refugees and people from migrant background. So what they think is that they need to have an understanding of what their life is like, or the sort of cultural values and things that they need to really be aware of before stepping in and starting to work with refugees. With that community connection, how is it working to try to connect the refugees and the mainstream
the locals
together? How is that working?
You don't need special qualifications. You don't need to be an expert in trauma. You don't need to be an expert in cultural communication. It's going to be a bit clumsy. Sometimes it might be awkward at times. I know for sure when I started, I'd never worked with quite low-level English-speaking capacity. So you just learn as you go. And when I started out, it was a bit, and I just had to go, I guess. But I often find with volunteers that we have coming to Multicultural Australia, they'll have the same question, like, how do I do this? How do I do this? But actually, once you get in there, you realise there's plenty of facial expressions and breaking down the sentence to make it very simple. And I think as long as the young person can see that you're there with a smile and you look really eager and you want to help, even if you kind of muck it up, they can see the enthusiasm. And I think they're very receptive to just that positive energy, encouraging. They're very more than responsive. You'll get a really awesome response out of the young people. You just show them that you're there, you're listening.
I think it's also about really treating each other as just we're all in this country, we're all in this city, we're living, we're taking a part in the community. As a person from refugee background, I also always find it really sort of, I'd say it makes me sad when a person treats me differently just because I'm a former refugee. So what I'd like is that, hey, we're all working together for one purpose. So there is no difference. So you don't really need to know the cultural values and all of these things if you are just want to, you just want to deliver something and make sure that that person is safe and you want to help them with something. So,
I think I would say intention is also not quite enough. So we also need to be aware that there's a safety framework, and these are people under 18 sometimes. So of course I think intention is one thing, but then to have the guidance of the professional framework is very important, I would say, as well. But I think it's that not a fine line. I think it's a big grey area, really, of trying to make sure that you're enthusiastic and having a go, but also you're going to make mistakes and not too many, really. But it might be a little bit, I said that wrong. But then again, it should just be this open-mindedness to go, I did stuff up that one. And you just have a chat with whether it's myself or another supervisor, or it could just be friends that you're doing this activism or engagement with, and just be aware and go, you know what, I'm going to do that different next time. I guess, that's kind of an obvious point, but just to know that you're growing as you go,
Sure.
and you're better and better, and I'm definitely making fewer and fewer mistakes, and you build more and more trust with the young person, and I guess that's sort of a cycle in itself. Yeah.
So what are the kinds of things that someone perhaps hearing this podcast and thinks, okay, well, I have no training, no skills, but maybe I'd like to volunteer to help. What are the sort of things that someone with no experience at all could do that would actually be really helpful?
Good question. Well, for example, we've had art workshops. So it was just for girls last year. I had a nice American lady and a Swedish lady actually come in and just sit with the girls and do some painting, and just talk as much as you possibly can, and you just figure out the word, Arabic word for paint, or Kurdish word for, we call it this in this language. And before you know it, it's been an hour and a half and it's time to go home. Or what else have we done? We do a lot of sports and things like that on school holidays. So you could come down with me and help set up the nets, take the kids' names, just make sure if they're under 18, they've got the all clear from mum and dad. So it can be more of that setting up admin stuff. We've also got English class. I used to do an English class. I don't anymore. But definitely you can go along and be a volunteer to sit with the students, and it could just be conversational, or it could be really grammatic sort of based classes. There's a lot actually out there. Even in the Carnival of Flowers, what did we have recently?
The
Languages and Cultures Festival. You can volunteer at that, and actually there were so many refugee background volunteers this year. It was so good to see. And from a youth hub perspective, that's us engaging them, getting them work skills that can go in their resume, that can get them a reference. It's communication skills, it's connection with community. So if you're, just a local here, definitely get involved with those community events and celebrations, because 9 times out of 10, the refugee background community will be there. And you can work alongside each other rather than... Some people can get a little bit intimidated if you're volunteering as an English teacher. I think that dynamic, because I don't even know everything about my language. So it can be a little bit intimidating to try and teach someone from a non-English background. Working alongside each other, often it's a soft entry point, I guess, into that.
Now, do the volunteers have to be from the same age range as your...
No, not at all.
Use that from 12? No, they can be from any.
So for I keep going back to the art example, but I think it's a really good example. So the American and Swedish lady were both 26, 27, and then our girls were probably 15 and 16 years old. I don't mind if you're in your 30s, 40s, 90s, whatever it is. I think actually the broader age diversity that we can get, the better. Sometimes the mature age people get left out of this conversation. They're assumed to be backwards or something, but actually some of my best volunteers, some of the most incredible people in the community are older, because they have life experience and they have kids, so they can connect. They've got that motherly or big sister feel to them. So any age.
I'm sure, having worked with refugees now for some time, there's lots of things that you've seen that have been really encouraging and really inspiring. What are some of the things that
oh my gosh, where do I even start? it's an absolute privilege to see and to be witness to their progress and to support it. But gosh, I come home like 3 or 4 nights a week. I'll come home and go, whoa, like incredible. Which is not to say that I'm underestimating what they can achieve, but they just go above and beyond.
Sounds like a good job to have if you come home 3 or 4 times.
It's very heartwarming. It really is. And I didn't know what to expect going into this. I was a bit worried. I was a bit missing home. And now it's like, oh, this is awesome. So recently I enrolled maybe 4 or 5 Yazidi background girls. So I think 4 Iraqi Yazidis, 1 Syrian. And they joined the Bella Girl program, which is run here in this building. And it's all about self-esteem, goal setting, making your dreams come true in real practical, let's get this done sort of thing. But it's also really fun, girly dancing and skincare and sisterhood stuff. So no more of the she's prettier than me, she's skinnier than me. It's all of our sisters, we're together. And I think that's a cool concept to be teaching to grade 7 to year 9 girls. Gosh, where was it when I was in grade 9?
I want that too.
But so I had the girls start out, and in the beginning they were a bit awkward, as any new group would be. But I was picking them up after and dropping them home as a youth worker. And as the weeks went by, they started going from, oh, I don't know about this, to I'm going to study marketing. I'm going to be a doctor.
Wow.
I'm going to be a basketball player.
Yeah.
And I remember one specific evening, I picked up one young girl after it, and she said about her feelings, and sometimes I feel sad and I don't know what to do. And I said, hey, sometimes I write in a book. It's about my feelings, and it's called a diary, and I've done it since I could write. And I think it might help you. And 2 weeks later, she hops in the car and she's got like a diary full of Arabic writing poems. And she said, this is about a happy time in my life. This is a sad time. And they had their graduation ceremony and they all went out for dinner. And so they're pretty much, I think it was 10 Australian girls and 4 Yazidis. And now those girls are going to spend time at Grand Central. So they've made Australian friends on the school holidays. And I love seeing that. Of course, it's great to see my clients getting jobs and getting, even if it's just a part-time thing at McDonald's or Kmart, or even volunteering at a local op shop. That's great. And I love that stuff. But I think the part that sometimes community services miss out on is that joy and dancing and making friends, like that, those social groups. You know what I mean? So, I got some big warm and fuzzies from that girls program, but I also just love seeing clients get jobs and things like that.
I think not every, let's say, a young refugee or migrant would be, even for Australian as well, wouldn't be ready to start a job or to take a course or whatever. They need sometimes to sort of learn and build the skills that they need in their lives, and that's how they need to engage with other young people in their age.
It all starts, I suppose, going back to what were we doing as kids, right? We were running around, climbing on trees, making friends, learning about the world around us. We weren't sitting in a classroom learning about cover letters, and I think for some of these young people, they've spent some of their childhood in not great sort of conditions in a refugee camp. So they didn't get that sort of joyful stuff. And, it's not about me, like, giving them the childhood they never had. But it's like, hey, there's some really fun, cool things you can do in this community. And most of it's volunteer-based, so it's free. There's usually transport available. If you go along and make a little mate, then you can carpool together. And then you've met their mum and dad and you're starting to make the community connections. So, yeah, start with that stuff and then get to the boring stuff. There's plenty of time to pay bills, guys.
Absolutely. So what have, in all of that, I can imagine that would be a very fulfilling kind of job to see that happen. Do you think that's changed you as a person? Like, we were growing all the time, right? So how has that affected the way that you have developed as a person, do you think?
That's a really great question. I don't think I've reflected on that, but I'm going to say things, and if it's just edit it out.
It's just you.
But
You can say whatever you want.
do you know what sprung to mind was actually my parents and my family, and we have, you know, normal family arguments and disagreements and things. Actually, even with people at work, it's softened me a lot.
Okay.
So people with differing opinions prior to starting to this job, you know, if someone had said something that was a little bit racist, but their heart was in the right place, I would get all, oh, well, you can't say that, that's rah. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But it's made me actually better able to engage with conversation and change the conversation in my lounge room. So my father might say something, you know, not great. And instead of turning to him and biting his head off, I'm able to sort of say, well, hang on, remember this amazing thing this refugee did? Yeah. Remember this amazing thing? Yeah. Remember this? And slowly but surely you start to open their minds a little bit. And I think that's a really valuable, I don't think you get very far just biting people's heads off that don't believe the same thing as you. And especially for someone that's highly educated, highly privileged, never really faced oppression in my life, I think it's kind of not my job, but I am in the position to sort of change that conversation. It's not up to a refugee to change that conversation. Sure. It's up to them to settle and get through their trauma. Yes. So I just think that it's made me better able to softly engage with people and not make them feel wrong or make them feel ashamed or, you know, sometimes there's just some bloody idiots that need to be their heads pulled. But overall, and even at work, I think I'm able to have these broader conversations, I guess, and sort of tiptoe around themes and get at why people think what they think and what is their story, you know. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. It's very, I think if I reflected upon my experience with people from different languages and different cultures, and particularly people who've come from very difficult backgrounds, I think a similar kind of thing. It sort of broadens your thinking and just trying to see the world through different people's eyes, I think makes a difference.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I think when you can demonstrate to, like with my my young people, I have that heart attachment. I do. I just love them to pieces. When I guess it's just teenagers. When teenagers can see that you're on their side or that you've got their back, you might not agree with their whole opinion. You might not agree with what they're doing. You know, a young person could be engaging in alcohol or drugs or something like this at home. But they can see that you've got their back. It's the same with everyone else. I think if you can have differing opinions, but just know that, hey, we don't agree with this, but I'm not going anywhere. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, just
having that support no matter what the person does.
Yeah, for sure. Love and peace and...
Absolutely. I think we need a second... Andre, I think we need a second episode with you to get through all the things that you're doing.
Talk less.
It was absolutely great to talk to you and get to know a little bit about what you're doing and the great job that you have engaging with young people from refugees. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back. So we've just listened to Andre's story and her great story of working with young people, young refugees.
Yes.
Tell me what you think about her story and the great work that she's doing at Multicultural Australia?
Yeah, well, I love that she talked about how she wasn't necessarily, like when she started working with refugees, it was like everything was new. And I think it's important for us to hear those kind of stories. Sometimes we see people, and I see Andre all the time on Facebook. We're not even friends on Facebook, that is. And I still see her all the time. So she's very active and obviously really heavily engaged. And you think there's a person who just knows everything and is able to work in this space.
Yeah.
But Andre, like everybody else, started at the beginning and knew nothing.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that she just encourages people to just go and try. And we all make mistakes, and that's okay.
Sure.
And just keep trying and keep learning. And particularly, she emphasised for us the importance of working within some sort of framework, just to make sure that, if you do have a problem, there's somebody there who can help out.
Right.
But that you don't need special training, you don't need special skills, you just need to be willing to have a go. I thought that was really encouraging.
Yeah, for volunteering, obviously.
For sure.
What I liked is that I didn't know much about what is happening at Youth Hub, and it's great to know that the sort of activities and the support that they provide the young refugees and migrants, it's really great to see them moving and having the support that they need to move forward toward achieving their dreams. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
And also that Andre's been able to see the importance as she's working with these young people, not just of how to fill in a CV and how to do a resume, which are important skills, but actually how to build relationships in the community, because that's the long-term skill, isn't it? Once you're here in Australia, you need to have those relationships with others. You need to connect with the community to feel a part of this community. And so things like the sporting activities and the dancing and the painting and things like that are really helping to build relationships, which in the long term will be really, really valuable. You can always get someone to help you with a CV.
That's true.
Or fill in a form.
Right.
But building relationships is really a long-term thing, and having some skills in that is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a life skill that many of us need to learn sometimes and make time to learn.
Well, and the interesting thing Andre has said, and many of our other interviewees on this program as well have said, is that those skills develop as you go.
Right.
And in seeking to reach out to others, you're actually learning new things yourself. So it's
That's
a win-win
true.
situation.
And also building the network. And that would also lead you toward finding a job in the future or getting to where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The other thing that Andre said that I was really impressed by was her own self-reflection on how she has come to change in the way that she communicates with other people, and how she sees herself as an agent of change. And I think what she said is very true. That those of us who were born here in Australia and we speak English, we already have all of those privileges. Other people are struggling to learn the language and learn the culture and things like that. We have the opportunity to change the way people think.
Yep.
And starting those conversations, as Andre was explaining, in a gentle way, in a meaningful way, can, in the long term, have a really powerful effect. So I thought that was a good challenge.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
To, not ignore the problem, but not to bite people's heads off, I think was the expression that she used, but to actually just have the gentle conversation and reflect on the experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
So I was really encouraged.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode as well, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Who is My Neighbour? To learn more about the work of You Belong Australia, just head to youbelong.org.au and find out all the ways you can get involved and empower refugees to integrate and thrive. Lastly, would you help support this podcast simply by sharing it with others? You can also write a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or subscribe to us on YouTube. Yes, we are a video podcast as well. Well, thanks again for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Who is My Neighbour?